Hey, y'all. Hey, today is Wednesday. Do not adjust your screens. I know you're expecting to see the most amazing panel of women, but unfortunately, with having an amazing panel of women comes great responsibility. They're all busy. Uh, Stuff with kids and things like that. So we'll have our regular panel back next week. Well, I am super excited. I have the amazing Walter Texas Bacon Master West with me here, and so we are going to have a short show today because we do have some excitement going on inside the Capitol, and because of all of the service problems that are inside of the Capitol and all of the crap that they like to just bog me down with anyway, we figured we'd just keep it short so we can cut down on the frustration. Walter, what happened here yesterday?
Well, it was a repeat, 2019. so, yeah, we had a fun time. The inauguration, it was Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and all the festivities that come with that. Had a good show of Texas dignitaries from all around came down. The ceremonies, the whole bit. And anyway, they talked about property taxes, better education, and securing the border. Kind of sounds like President Trump's first presidential run back in 2016.
Interesting. You know what it also sounded like? It sounded like a repeat scripts from 20. What was last 2018?
2019.
2019? Whatever. Same story, different year. Unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles in politics, right? There's no sense in having to run on actually accomplishing anything when you can just keep making campaign promises.
Well, they touted the ability to say, hey, we won over 70% of rural Texas. So look at that, rural Texas. They didn't include Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth. None of that was included in the 70%. Luckily, Texas has 254 counties. So whatever you have, 10 to 13 counties that really make the difference. And then, of course, you get down into the valley where they lost down in the RGV very handily. Now, we picked up a few seats down there, but at the same time, it just wasn't the same as what was needed. We had that big red wave that everyone's like, well, that was a trickle. Well, no, actually, there was a big blue stop. So somebody dammed up the river, and it may have actually come from from our side, as opposed to the Democrats actually having a good ground game.
No, I mean that's exactly it. And, it was exciting. We did get to speak to a congressman and his staff yesterday, and we said, she goes, wait a minute, you were part of the actual red wave of 2020, not the blue trickle this year. And I started laughing, and I said, yeah, no, exactly it. And that's the fact that they said all of the right things. That's why they keep getting reelected, right? Patrick spoke for half an hour, I think, yesterday. He said all the right things. We kind of highlighted some of it when you guys could hear us a little bit. Of course, he made his little statement about, and I'm going to get on this one because Walter, you loved this. This was one of your favorite statements from yesterday. Patrick made the statement that, made the reference in that right before God rested on the seventh day, he had all this oil. And the angels asked him what he was going to do with it. And he said, I'm going to put it in Texas for them to take care of it. And everyone cheered and screamed because Texas is oil and gas country, even though we're turning into wind farms and solar bullshit Nikes. Stop myself there. But tell me about the sponsors, Walter, for the inauguration, or I'm sorry, the oath of office ceremonies and all that kind of jazz. Tell me what happened with that.
Well, as you know, they have the little booklets and the pamphlets and whatnot. And then they have the whole inaugural day, the inaugural ball. We were at Austin City Limits. And if you watch PBS or NPR, Austin City Limits for decades, for over almost half a century, has been nothing more than, entertainment for the Texas music industry. Willie Nelson is always there, just the limelights. Don't think it was back in the day when Bob Wills was still around. But anyway, bottom line is, all the events and festivities, all in downtown Austin, and all of it with downtown Austin. And the flip side is only 1/3 of it was sponsored by oil and gas. And I talked to Wayne Christensen. He is a one of our reelected railroad commissioners, which people need to realize here in Texas, the Railroad Commission is actually in charge of oil and gas. They are actually a very powerful group of three. It's Christy Craddock, it's Jim, and it's hey Sandra, mute your mic. Yeah, so it's they're also and then Wayne Christensen, and he was, they're reelected every 2 years. They have a 6-year term, but every 2 years, one of them comes up. Worldwide, oil and gas from across the world contact these three. And it's, what are we going to do? These are the ones that are fighting the EPA. These are the ones that are working with the EPA. These are the ones that are fighting the oil and gas industry and working with the oil and gas industry. So they're helping to make things safer in Texas. Texas is the 9th largest economy in the world. So just look at the fact that if, and as we saw with the Capitol, there was a plane that was flying around with a tag that said, Texit, allow the Texans to vote. So that's Texas exiting the Union. I'm not going to be pushing that right now, but here's what I can say. If Texas were to exit the Union, we would drop in our, Texas would not be the 9th largest economy because we would have to take something away from it. However, that would mean that the U.S. and where they stand above us, we get a lower ranking because they would no longer have us. So there's issue with the fact that we have all of these things, and only 1/3 of the sponsors for all of the inaugural activities yesterday were oil and gas. You would have thought we would have had a whole lot more. And in looking at what is physically going on in the green energy world, natural gas, now they're starting to look at how they're going to tout natural gas as it is a clean energy. And you have to look at that as that. This, I'm not just going to sit here and beat up on the inaugural issues that happened yesterday and the campaign speeches and promises that were brought back from 2019. We need to look at the fact that now we physically have a governor that's declared an invasion. I think it's twice now. He has a perpetual declaration of emergency disaster that went on from the COVID. It's just gone on and on and on with no end in sight. And that's a part of how, we're going to fight the Biden administration. At some point, all he's got to do is throw his middle finger in the air and say, you know what, Joe Biden, do what you got to do. Because I guarantee you, Joe Biden doesn't have the balls to have the U.S. Army come in here, nor do they have the IRS agents that have the balls to come in here. And we don't have to remit any of our items until they decide they're going to do things. You want to call yourself a big leader like Florida, this is where we've got to step up. We have to have, if Ron DeSantis could just send some DNA over, we could put it in the governor's coffee. We would have we would have that strength. So you can't go on the whole fact of we're a red state, we're this, we're that. Everything that was run on this last election cycle, not everything, but there's a large part of it that was false. There's a lot of luck that came in there. The way DC came in and was allowed to redraw Texas was it was unbearable. And then the fact that everyone has to jump behind, they have to go along to get along. Now we're going to start pushing the 11th commandment. We're all Republicans. It's Republicans versus Democrats. You have Democrats that are ready to come over to a party that's not as dysfunctional as their own. And here we have the Republican Party that is moving into that stream of dysfunction. It's bottom line is, without Texas, we're not going to have a strong America because right now this is where we're physically having these guys come in across the border. And Mexico is our number one trading partner. But Texas is giving up so much in federal projects to the other side, to the western side of the country, that we will lose that standing here soon because we're not getting the federal tax dollars. The I-35 corridor, the I-27, that's been on the books since the 1990s, whenever George Bush was the governor. These are things that nobody's looking at because people are not remembering history. Matter of fact, we're not remembering history from a couple of years ago. So if we're going to have short-term memory loss from a couple of years ago, then how are we going to know what happened in the 1990s when we put all this stuff forward? So bottom line, it was a great set of events, some good campaign promises. My favorite, Brandon Creighton, senator, he was put in charge of basically all of the education in Texas, which is now going to be comprised of the largest budget that makes up the state. We heard how Governor Abbott came in and said, we have a surplus. And with that surplus, it's like, hey, wait a second. If we have a surplus, give that crap back to the taxpayer. Property tax reform, give it back to the taxpayer. Don't start putting it in new programs.
Well, it wasn't just a surplus. Don't forget about our huge rainy day fund.
Well, and that's not just the rainy day fund, but then also look at the fact that he said this past last cycle we had the most amount of jobs that were created. Well, we also had the most amount of jobs that were lost. COVID is nationwide now. We're seeing that the COVID hoax is hook, line, and sinker is what they went into. Governor Abbott physically shut down the state, and because he had $60 million in his bank and we couldn't have Beto O'Rourke, who happens to be a fake Texan. Whenever I say a fake Texan, Beto O'Rourke has never been a threat. He's a gradual decline, but yet he is the one thing that spins up. He doesn't spin up the Democrats; he pisses them off. He whips up and spins up the Republicans, and this is why we have the issues we have, because they would rather not try something. The Republicans would rather not try something new. Whenever the Democrats come in and they put up a JFK style governor here in Texas, or even as a president, you better watch out. You're going to see your moderate Republicans, they're going to cross that aisle. And that's whenever you're going to see Texas go back to being blue. And Texas has only been blue for as long as we've had George W. Bush as governor, which was the term right before his presidency. So we're sitting in 30 years of Texas red, and that's it. It hasn't, the 100 years prior, it was blue. It was all Democrat.
Now, Walter, I want to ask you some questions. Of course, we're talking about how oil and gas is only allowed to have 30% of the ad space, if you will, for sponsorships and stuff like that. I think it's important here in Texas that we remember that we're supposed to be leading the fight in big tech, the war against big tech. I found it very interesting that Google was a sponsor. That was fun. And then, we've got a lot of outside schools coming into Texas to intervene in the K through 12 scene. Some of them we know about, of course, like the ones that have ties with the CCP and all that, the Turkish schools, things along those lines. There's another one. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I know we have a lot of researchers that watch our show. Moac Casey, proven leaders in advanced education, concerns me. I don't know anything about them, in fairness. A lot of different health groups and things like that.
Wait, whoa. Did you say Moac Casey?
Yeah.
I think that's the, if I'm not mistaken, that's an educational consortium. Is that right?
Well, it doesn't say. That's why I said, you know what, this one does have a red flag in the back of my mind, though, and I was hoping that maybe somebody else might remember it.
Yeah, as one of your donors. So here's the fun part. Moac Casey is the one that Dan Huberty just bought into. Ah, that's right. Remember Dan Huberty of the board? That I didn't even look at the brochure, so I had no clue they were one of the big sponsors. He just bought into Moac Casey, and obviously you guys know that and he's Dan Huberty was one of our favorite Republicans that everyone loved to hate. He's the guy who parked his Corvette underneath of the minivan at the mall on my side of Montgomery County, and that's why he ultimately did not run again. He was one of the leading Rhino Republicans that would champion education bills, but it was Rhino education bills. And so new folks into the party are very accepting of his work, but through things like the Kingwood Tea Party that host a lot of falsivities of what's actually happening in Texas, and they were big champions of the government, of the governor. This is why Texas is in trouble, because we have these establishment rhinos that came off of school boards. And remember, these are guys that went jettisoned from school board races, who now we have school board races that run into the millions. And the reason why the school board races run into the millions is because they want to be the first to indoctrinate your children. They want to be the first to put the sex books in the library, or to keep the sex books in the library, because for the most part, they're already there. And this is why the grassroots Texan, and I'm not going to say the grassroots Republican, but the grassroots Texan, you're finding that there is a nonpartisan, there's a nonpartisan flair of grassroots people that are starting to come together, because the establishment, which is the Republicans and the Democrats, but the rhinos and dinos, they're the elite that are up here making the decisions. And you physically have to look at the fact of the speaker's race and how things went about with that. Jefferson County and Orange County, some of Orange County, and the counties to the north of Jefferson County, they gave us backdate feeling unchallenged all the way across. And he had a $6 million bank. He put $5 million into it. He ran attack radio ads in North Texas. He worked with folks like Dick Weekly and the Texans for Lawsuit Reform. The Freedom Caucus here in Texas, they're not that free. Matter of fact, of the Freedom Caucus in Texas, they weren't the ones that were fighting for us. They were the ones that were rolled over, took it in the hind end, and said, "Hey, folks, this is what we've got. We now have pastors coming out mansplaining or cry shaming their viewpoints, and that's physically. I mean, you're just seeing the different pastors' councils are coming together, and they're saying, wait a second, we have got to stop having our people preach Freedom Caucus is Christianity. Whenever you see the U.S. Freedom Caucus is not like the Texas Freedom Caucus, and it's sure as heck ain't like the Montgomery County Freedom Caucus. So these are the folks that the Texas Freedom Caucus. We're in trouble if that's going to be what we're relying on.
Can I have a point of information, please?
What you
Thank
got?
you for taking a breath. For the record, I took $300 from Dan Huberty in 2019 to help with my filing fee when the Kingwood Tea Party invited him to come give to me before they went completely dino on. Number one. Number two, I've not spoken to him since. Number three, I've never heard of Moat Casey until this very moment. And number four, I've had no problem calling him out on his grievances. So, all that out there before you made it sound like I was just some freaking lazy hall over here.
Yeah, well, and that's what you get for having a blonde who takes everything personal. It actually just popped into my head because when she said Moat Casey, I was like, holy crap, I was just with that dude last night, and he was, he was, which is funny. People don't realize that the state legislature in Texas, they only meet for 150 days, 140 days every 2 years. So this is not a full-time job by any means. As a matter of fact, they get paid $600 a month, and then they get per diem, which is $221 per day, and whatever mileage they spend around their district. And some districts are very large. Some districts are not. They have staff. They have all this other kind of stuff. But to be an elected state house official in Texas, you're looking at making less than $20,000, maybe $23,000 after your per diem kicks in, if you're in Austin the whole entire time. That being said, how does a guy walk away with a multi-$1,000 lease on his new coffee shop, which used to be the old Starbucks in the middle of downtown, which is going to be at 10th and Congress here in downtown Austin, and also his consulting business is up top. So you're looking at a $5,000 to $10,000 to maybe $15,000 monthly lease that goes on there. This is just case in point. Just like we have in the U.S. House, you have Congress members and representatives. They have a low six-figure or a five-figure job, and whenever they get out, they're worth millions. And it doesn't matter if it's a state house or if it's a federal house. But the government is the place to go when you want to get rich. These guys here in Texas, they've only got to serve, I think it's a total of 6 terms, 12 years. And they actually get a state court, district court judge's retirement after that. So they make $21,000 a year, if that, while they're in their 12 years of service, and then they walk away with, what is it, a $75,000 a year retirement after just doing 12 years. So you can see that Texas is There's a lot of red that's in Texas, but unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with the bleeding of the taxpayer. You know, if the taxpayers actually got true taxpayer reform, when I say that taxpayer reform, we got actual voter integrity. Everyone's touting voter integrity. It was the Republicans that killed making it a felony. They don't want to talk about that. Whenever the Democrats get to bring up that point, that's actually a logical, true point. Steve Allison with the Allison Amendment back in the 87th or 80, it was the 87th. Yeah, it was the 87th, the first session. He is the one who made voter fraud. He returned it back to being a misdemeanor. It's the equivalent of a parking ticket or maybe a fender bender with no insurance. So you know what? You don't even lose your voting rights. So all I got to do is move to a different city and start the voter harvesting back there again.
Wow. Um, One of the other things that happened in the '86 legislature. This was a big deal. In fact, a lot of people made a big deal out of it. Dr. Pepper became the official drink of
Yeah.
Texas. Did it not? Now, I want you guys to see this because you're not going to believe it if I showed it to you. If it didn't show it to you, the sponsor though yesterday was Coca-Cola. There was
That
not one Dr. Pepper anywhere
so
to be seen. As far as the eye could see, there was no Dr. Pepper. Can someone explain this to me?
so Texas is, we lead the nation, blah blah blah. Everything's bigger in Texas. Did you know that Dr. Pepper actually was invented before and patented before Coca-Cola? And here we are in the state where it was invented. It became the state. So basically, it's our national drink here in Texas. And at the inauguration, it wasn't even there. That they didn't even. I mean, there. I've got pictures. That was one of the first things I noticed. It was water, Diet Coke, Coke, and Coke Zero, and Sprite. And I'm like, holy crap! They don't even have Dr. Pepper. You know what? So all these people want to sit here and say Texas, 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 but yet we're going to use an Atlanta product. And where's Atlanta going right now? To the dogs.
Well, I don't want to be all doom and gloom on here. There was a lot of greatness that happened yesterday. Just it was a fun day in festive Texas. It truly was. There was I'm trying to find it. The Taste of Texas. It featured barbecue or restaurants all across the state. I think all of them except for one barbecue. I think we may have wolfed it down more than we actually ate it, but it was still delicious nonetheless. There was, of course, Country Line was one of them. Damn it! Here we go. Here we go. The County Line in Austin, the Pelican House Restaurant in Duncanville, L&J Cafe El Paso, The Spot in Galveston, Fat Eatery in Katy, River Smith's Chicken and Catfish in Lubbock, Del
Hey, you're dead. Hey, you're spinning the computer. I'm not hearing a thing. So anyway, well, if you can hear me, because I can't hear myself, uh, Sandra's control board just went dead. We're not on. I don't have any sound.
Oh,
There we are. Okay. So, folks, let me try and finish this up. Anyway, as you can tell, is everyone able to hear? Go on Facebook and see if they're responding. Um, if you're able to hear, here we are, right there. Huh? Okay. So, as you can tell, this is fun. There's actually no feedback in these things. So, as you can tell, we are still here at the Capitol. There were some really good things and some promises made, but now this is the time for the promises to be made and those promises to be kept. Today, we're going to be on viewing a movie that had just premiered yesterday in Hollywood. The premiere in Hollywood was, of course, with Dennis Quaid as the narrator. Dennis Quaid is one of our favorite Texans. He graduated Bel Air High School ahead of me at his rival, which would be Lamar Senior High School. We were the Redskins, they were the Cardinals. And I'm not as old as Dennis Quaid by any means. Matter of fact, he was a movie star when I was in high school. So him and Randy Quaid both. I think they graduated sometime in the 70s, and I was in the 90s, 1990 to be exact. Anyway, the bottom line is we're looking at the green energy problem. We're looking at the oil and gas problem. We're looking at just the things that are making the difference to the everyday Texan, the taxpayers, the taxation itself, and all that. One of the things that we have, to be proud of here in Texas is obviously is going to be our oil and gas. But now we have big tech that's been coming in. Big tech has been moving into Austin. They welcomed Google. They welcomed Facebook. We obviously have Elon Musk. I'm not going to put him on the same status as Google and all those because we've got SpaceX down in Brownsville, the Cameron County area. We have Tesla here local. We also have Tesla that's not just the batteries but the vehicles. We have things that are moving into just west of Houston, and you're finding that Elon Musk is while he voted Republican for his congressional representative, we're finding that he speaks to the grassroots of both of the parties, to the people that are tired of the establishment, and those are the kind of things that are physically making some fun stuff happen. Hey, wait a second! Now I can hear myself again. So look at Sandra. She's the big hot mess of wind.
I look like it, right?
Yeah. So I don't know where you're at, but where I'm at, there's no wind. It's
Your
just
hair
not.
doesn't seem to be blowing in the wind, Walter. What's going on with that?
Yeah, no, not me. And just so you know, we don't have the board that we're going to have, our normal storyboard that we're going to have. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do. This is my Skyland companies. If you need Justin and the crew, they'll come out and fix your diesel. This is my Montgomery County Tea Party plug. Obviously, the ones that are raising hell and raising Cain the most.
I should be able to do a commercial break.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it for you. So the Montgomery County Tea Party, if there's anybody that can make Dan Crenshaw flinch and winch, that's going to be him 23 million times on the YouTube views that came out on social media whenever he filleted that young lady. He obviously had a good return on that. So there's some decent things that actually happen, which shows you that the grassroots in both parties can actually make the difference. What we really need to look at, though, is the fact that the establishment folks that we have are the ones that are our biggest issue. And so you have the folks that can cross over that are not physically wanting to make that move because we have so many establishment Republicans in there. And unfortunately, we don't have John on today, but I got to meet some SREC members yesterday, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, Montgomery County, man, we just don't want to get involved." And I'm like, it's literally your rules, your party. Why wouldn't you get involved? It's like saying, hey, parents, the kids are fighting. Y'all just go sit in the corner. We're going to finish fighting. And it's probably one of the most embarrassing decisions I've ever seen the SREC make, which is to not get involved. But if you look around the state, you have party chairs that have felonies that are racking up against them. We're becoming the party of criminals because everyone thinks they can get away with it. And this has been the problem for so long. Everyone's been getting away with things. No one's been held accountable. And here we are. A great movement on the Capitol yesterday for the inauguration. The festivities were great, but now the real work begins. So are we going to have the education reform that we need? I'm hoping that we can have people like Brandon Creighton, who will be heading one of those committees, which the committees are not formed yet. So this week and next week are when the committees are going to be formed, and they'll know who's leading the committees, who's going to be chairing the committees, obviously, who's going to be leading the committees, and then who is going to be steering those committees as well as who's going to be on those committees. So we shall see how this is going to work out.
No,
Miss Sandra.
No, you're spot on. Howard Hudell was asking if Elon Musk can buy tech stock. TxDOT, all these road constructions would have been wrapped up in 6 months. I can't say that you're wrong. The problem is that we have to keep circulating the money. It's kind of like our own money laundering scheme here in Texas by just making these contracts that never seem to end. So I don't understand why you, the taxpayers, would be upset about something like that. You know, it, it's gonna be a rough session. It really is. Whether you believe some of the stuff that some of our legislators are putting out, or whether you believe what your own lying eyes are seeing, it's gonna be a rough session for everybody. It really is. And if we don't hold them accountable, it's not going to get better for we the people. It won't. And we have to make sure that we hold them accountable. That's why we're up here. That's why, yesterday we spoke with people we didn't necessarily particularly agree with or care for, and they're like, "Oh, you're here." Yeah, we are here. We promised we were going to be here, and look, promises made, promises kept, as you like to say. So but that's what we have to do, because we can back Monday Monday morning quarterback until we're all blue in the face. But if we don't physically show up, if we don't physically do the work of we the people, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to. Um, we're going to continue to lose our state. We're going to continue to allow these crap votes where the Speaker of the House gets every single vote except for three. We're going to continue to see where legislation just gets watered down and pushed around like a bunch of little mamby-pambies were in charge of it, because a bunch of mamby-pambies are in charge of it. They just want to look good on paper. They want to be able to say, well, we gave it our best, but hey, look, we're doing better on the other end of it. Not the state of Texas, not the people. Don't package that you're a fighter, and then don't you better come out with your boxing gloves on, or come out with bloody knuckles.
Don't package that you're a fighter and turn out to be a pillow biter. So yeah, that's not what we're liking. What we want to see is true conservatism. We saw the parties were failing; they were falling apart. Huh. Sorry, that's a cop's car. I'm looking. Make sure I don't get his plates on there. But anyway, the key is there was so much hook, line, and sinker. What do you call those guys? The RNC came in. The RNC came in. They had a great. I'm trying to make sure that I
mean, you specifically ended up getting that in there. What are you doing?
Yeah. So
you're gonna make Miss Patty seasick again.
Exactly. Well, she needs to be seasick. I've seen the pictures on Girls Gone Wild that she's doing down there with Dennis. It's just crazy stuff. But anyway, but no, what we're seeing specifically with what's been happening is the leadership came into Texas. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. They raised so much money nationwide on Texas. The RNC did, and they didn't spend it here. The big red wave we had, we still have that it wasn't a tsunami like they wanted, but we still have a wave that's happening once we get past all of the DC indulgences that were had down there. We have all the we had all the sexual assaults of the RNC people, and those it was pretty comical last night. I ran into some people, and the first thing out of their mouth, my normal tagline is, "Man, are you staying out of trouble?" I even asked Alan West that. Half the time I get a, me, man, I literally was like, "Don't believe everything you hear." It was like, oh wow, guilty conscience. It's literally been people that know me. Actually, I've said it to the same people for years upon years, and then now it's like, hey, you've been staying out of trouble. Man, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. You don't believe the lies. I'm just like, wow. That was some funny stuff. So it kind of made a party a little bit realistic. I'm like, wow, this is my memorable selfie. And it's unfortunately it's unfortunate Ashley couldn't be on because it was some of her favorite people. So so we're seeing that there's a lot of folks that fell into what I call the grifter world. And then there's a lot of people that we labeled as grifters that really do good work, but they ran into the mean girl club, and it's like, had you just done the right thing to begin with and done your due diligence and looked at people, looked at their heart, actually physically had a conversation with them, we wouldn't be having the issues, because we're fighting more personalities than we're fighting policies. The left is winning within the right because we're not the policies that we're trying to fight. We're not fighting them right now because we're worried more about what our neighbor is doing that's fighting the exact same thing. And so that's where we get into the whole issue of the 11th commandment, about the Republicans. This is what we need to be on for Texas. So we need to actually make sure that Texans are physically doing their work, whether they're here in Texas or whether they're abroad. When I say abroad, on the other side of the Sabine or anywhere else. The big kick that we need to really take away from this is now's the time to knuckle down. So starting next week, we'll know what the committees are, and we'll have I believe we're going to have within 20 days to see which amendments and which bills are going to be put out there to go into law. I'm wanting to see some of our state laws repealed. These guys come up here every year and they get anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 bills placed on their desks, and they pass anything under 3,000. It happens to be the craziest stuff ever. Hey, hey, try and get your buddy Matt on the phone. He's calling in. See where he's at.
All right, I'll be right back. Hold on.
Yeah. So anyway, but bottom line is we're sitting here up in Austin. This is going to be the time for the grassroots to get up here. You saw how the Dade Phelan moved the vote forward because he didn't know about the hundreds to thousands of people that were coming up on buses that they paid for. And these are the people that are his voters. These are the people that voted for his people. These are the people that he defeated their elected officials in the primaries local. Whenever you had state reps such as Steve Toth get involved in the races up to support Stephanie Click on public health. And then, we saw him come out with a video the other night at the Montgomery County Tea Party where he was talking about how wonderful a guy Dade Phelan is. He's got his problems and all that, but he was selling it on it. It was very reminiscent of the Mark Keogh of the same House seat that did the seconding notion for Joe Strauss. And then Joe Strauss got screwed by Mark Keogh got screwed by Joe Strauss. And then now we have Mark Keogh as the county judge of Montgomery County. These are the things that physically go on throughout the state where, if you walk in, I get more hugs and smiles from Democrats now because they're like, wow, you're making my job easier. And it's like, no, I'm not making your job easier. You just need to come over and do the right thing. But we're going after the right people. And we're gonna fight the people within our party first because those are the ones that know better. And that's how you do things. You take care of the family first, and then you go out on the battlefield. And right now, we're going to see how this battlefield here lays out. I'm used to blood and guts and stuff like that, and stuff exploding. So here, we can't have that similar type of violence. But what we can have is the tenacity and the persistence to make sure that the right things are happening. This is stuff we're paying for. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that the lobbyists are the ones that are making more money in the state than our own people, and they're doing it with our money. We still have taxpayer funded lobbyists. The police unions, they take money from the police officers that come up here, and they do these sham deals. Who's to say that a police officer or firefighter, they're the ones who are paying for the demise of our education system through their paycheck and whatnot. These are, yesterday was very reminiscent of a very qualified inauguration, a great set of ceremonies. But now's the time for there to be some action. Now's the time for folks to get on that call, contact their state reps and their House reps, and you have to know who yours are. I can't tell you how many times I run into, man, Donald Trump was the man. Oh man, I'm 100% Republican, and then they don't even know who the representative is. Well, who's your congressman? Who's your state rep? Who's your state senator? Oh, my state rep's not the same as my congressman? No. And then they want to call the state house, the state congress, and that's not what we call it. It's the state house. So it's Texas, and there's 150 districts. There's 31 Senate seats. There's 38 congressional seats. There's 2 U.S. Senate seats. These are the things people need to know, and they don't. What school district do you live in? What school members district do you live in? What at-large people are running in your area? Why are school board races costing hundreds of thousands of dollars now? It's because they want your tax dollars. They want your kids, so they want your money. They're hitting you at all levels, and we could have so much property tax reform if we would just enforce what's going on within our schools, and not just there, but the superintendents making $400,000 to $500,000, $300,000. You got school superintendents are making $200,000 to $300,000, and they've only got 4,000 kids. And on top of that, everything's run by the politicians, the school board members. The superintendents get behind there, and then they whip the politicians, they're the school board members, to do what they want. The school board members are the representative of the people. These are things that need to be they need to relax and just do the right stuff on. You're finding more and more folks are as I'm sitting here in the parking lot of the visitor center of the Capitol. More and more people are coming in, so the day is getting started. A little less ceremonious and a little more handshaking going on. Now's the time to get in here and be seen. If you can't get down here to be seen, fine. And for your state house, wherever you're at, get to know your reps. Call them. Call the reps from the others. If you don't have a good rep that's yours, but you can get behind one, you get behind that one. Throw their campaign some money. Throw their, these staffers that we have. The cost of living here in Austin is through the roof. It is unreal. Welcome back, Sandra.
Miss Patty, what Sandra what was I eating? I'm confused. What? That doesn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
Starving.
Mm-hmm. See, and this is why planning is so important.
Something happened to my breakfast taco this morning.
If you're constantly flying by the seat of your pants, you're not going to get anywhere. That's why, whenever you stop into places, you always stay prepared.
One day I will be on your level, Walter West, and what a beautiful world that'll be.
Sometimes you just got to roll out of bed hungry and say, what the heck? I mean, I got here in one piece. It was some good stuff. So anyway.
Interesting.
It's kind of funny whenever a homeless man, you walk by a homeless man out here on the streets, they look at you and they're like, hey, man. I'm like, hey, are you going to finish that sandwich over there? Because I'm pretty hungry this morning. They're looking at me like, well, I was going to ask you. And I'm like, I haven't had breakfast yet. So nothing mean on the guy. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, some of us got to get to work. We got things to do. Plan your day accordingly.
You know what? I'll try harder. I'll try harder. Coffee looks nice.
It does. I could get you some. But anyway.
Really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. So how are we looking on our time? Are we still within our first hour?
Well, yeah, because we're only doing the 1 hour today because we have to get over to the state capitol and we just have issues again.
The answer to the question is, how are we doing? Are we still in our first hour, or are we done and we're ready to roll out?
I'm gonna punch you in your face because you don't listen. Yes, we're still within our first hour. We have 15 minutes left, Mr.
There we
West.
go. 15 minutes left. There we are. That's a good answer. So, comical as it may be, we really met with some good folks yesterday. There's going to be some fun stuff that's going to be going down. Not just shenanigans, but I mean actual things. Last night, and I'm waiting to hear from Alexandra Schilling down in Eagle Lake. But last night, Endeavors, and a lot of folks don't know this, but Endeavors is it's an organization that does disaster aid and cleanup. However, they're much like Catholic Charities. They utilize your tax dollars through grants and funding that the federal government provides. And this is people like Max Lucado, Pastor Max Lucado from San Antonio. He is on the board of Endeavors, and they actually are currently looking at putting illegal aliens, boys specifically, into old nursing homes that are closed down. So they're buying these things. These are nonprofit companies that are buying physical buildings. Since they're nonprofit, guess what they're doing? They're not paying local taxes. So they're not going into the big cities as much anymore. They're going into the smaller towns. And all they're doing is they're going to, obviously they're going to have their Cisco food contracts and all that. The locals are going to be shut out of any type of tax base. It's nothing actually but a tax burden. Then on top of that, they have all of these federal entitlements, which allow them to get around certain building codes, certain status checks. So now we're going to be putting illegal aliens and specifically in Eagle Lake. Eagle Lake. Let me make sure that everyone knows that Eagle Lake is down near Fayette, Colorado County, Hallettsville, Lavaca County, all those. So it's a small town America, but you're going to have your illegal aliens. We don't know to the tune of how many numbers. You have to look at a nursing home and say, hey, they usually have 2 patients. But how do kids live? Whenever you stack 4 or 5 bunk beds into a room, now you have about 100 that can take over a facility like the one that's going on down there. And there is no protection of safety for the local anything. Eagle Lake does not have its own police department. It relies on a sheriff's department. What's the sheriff's department doing right now? Well, it's currently worried about the drugs that are coming up from Mexico, because that's where that's one of the areas they come through. So now they want to house the illegal aliens that are claiming asylum, and these illegal aliens are boys or men because we don't know what their age is.
Hey, could you step over to your right a little bit because you keep showing this guy's buffer license plate
It's
other way,
yeah, he's in a state.
or like move over entirely?
He's in the public eye, so it doesn't matter.
Clearly, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, the bottom line is I'm in a shadow, so my phone doesn't catch on fire or burn with the sunshine. That's why I'm sitting where I'm sitting. So anyway, and I wanted everyone to see the Capitol. See the Capitol in the background? Isn't that just gorgeous?
Look at the Capitol with all the scaffolding all over. You know what? One of my favorite moments of yesterday was one of the main entrances to get inside of the Capitol. On the day that nobody's going to be there, they decided to start painting the hand railings.
So, not just that, but the funniest part that I thought was as I was leaving the inaugural ceremonies, I looked and I was like, "Wow, this looked like the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th, the riot that took place. There was scaffolding everywhere, and I was like, if I could just climb to the second floor and not get shot by a DPS trooper." And here's the fun part: the Department of Public Safety definitely is a very better protective detail than the Capitol Police up in the U.S. So again, for Texas law enforcement, maybe next time we have an inauguration up there in D.C., the next time we bring the president in, they'll call the Department of Public Safety instead of the Capitol Hill Goon Squad, because that's just what they're going to need.
Well, that seems legitimate. Seems kind of nice even. I was mildly disappointed by the amount of the physical work that was being done on the Capitol. Just like, just a random Tuesday.
Yeah. Part in our construction, we have to have some inaugural duties, and everyone in the world's gonna be taking pictures. I saw a lot of European accents, Mexican accents. There were some folks from Central America, from the different countries. Because we are, the governor actually he does reach out to other countries. Being the 9th largest economy in the world means we have to reach out to those leaders. So we did have people from Mexico. We did have people from Europe that were here, and they were happy to be here. It was just comical to see that, everything was under construction. So Texas right now, from this inauguration, Texas is under construction, including our politics and our policies.
Oh, good on you. It's like the bones are there. The bones are there. It's got good bones. We got to gut the house a little bit.
Yep. Sometimes you can say with the lipstick on a pig.
So many comments, so many jokes. It's really a shame that we only have 10 minutes left. It might keep us out of a little bit of trouble. Just a little bit.
So we do have a roaming reporter, and we can't tell you what's going to be happening other than that we may actually bring you some live action coverage from the Ukraine. We may actually have an embedded Texas fully loaded reporter that physically goes to see where your $40 billion went. And then, of course, what was tucked into the $1.7 trillion. But we had enough Republicans that voted against that to say, hey, we voted against it. But, it still passed because they knew it was going to pass. So this is where we stop doing the whole shuck and jive of the game, and start actually getting back down to brass tacks and grassroots work.
Yeah, no, we are excited about that. Our roaming reporter, if you will, international hashtag international roaming reporter. That's one heck of a tramp stamp, but I'm proud that you have it, buddy. Can't wait for everybody to find out.
So do we put the steers from? Hang on, if you can see that over there. That's actually that's the UT Stadium. I'm not going to say what it is because I was an Aggie, but we're going to put Longhorns on one side of the tramp stamp, TFL in the middle, and the state of Texas on the other. So that's the kind of tramp stamps we have.
Howdy.
Cool. and we have a local PD. Pretty good, pretty good. So
What?
we
All right. No, yeah. Gosh, Walter's story. We are excited. We are excited. We're going to be able to now. This is where we tell you guys all the time. Make sure that you're following our social media. They are constantly trying to block us. They're constantly trying to shut us down, as you guys know. But importantly, today, like Walter said, we're going to be in the Capitol if we can have the signal. If not, we'll have to record it and then we'll make a spectacle of it that way. But we're going to be. We've been given permission from Senator Hall to broadcast the question and answers segment with for the screening today of Grid Down Power Up, and so or Grid Down Power Up. What is it? Yeah, Grid Down Power Up. And so I'm excited about that. You'll have a TFL exclusive if you're following our social media. If not, we can't help you. I mean, what are you going to do?
So listen. So true story. They're looking for somebody because that's a City of Austin police officer. We are standing on state property. This is patrolled by the Department of Public Safety, not the city, and they're very jurisdictional here. So the fact that a Austin cop came up here looks like, I mean, he's walking all over this parking lot looking for somebody. So this is awesome. Hey, maybe we can get into like an episode of Cops, and I'll start. How does that run? How does that go? Okay, guys, we're moving in. We're making it happen.
Oh my gosh.
1040 at Bush, we got him at gunpoint.
Miss Patty, do something with him. Miss Patty said that she can be the roving reporter down there on the island, on Tibbs Island. I'm liking it.
Well, she's got a. She can't. No more pictures of Dennis in a Speedo. So that. I'm getting jealous.
Wait, what? You know what? I don't want the answer to that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, the fun part is that we have. We thought we were going to have problems with things, but yeah, whenever I saw the Navy guys jump on board of watching what he was doing, I was like, man, Dennis is going to be stacked.
I think that was your comp friend just now. Anyway, we're about out of time. We got about 5 minutes left, Walter. What do you? Let's talk about this show today a little bit that we're going to be seeing. Of course, we're talking about the power grid. We're talking about what happened in 2021 with the great Pupa there, and about how they haven't really done anything. I think that's going to be a big topic of discussion today. You did we've shared it before. We'll have to pull it back out of the archives and share it again. But you did a big thing with NTD News about the power grid here in Texas, about the wind farms kind of taking over. It was a great source of conversation last night with some of the people that we were with about how that people are more focused on the subsidiaries than they are on what's actually good for Texas. Why do you think that our politicians are okay with selling the subsidiaries, knowing that it actually puts families at risk of not having power?
So the subsidies that are placed on these things it's phenomenal. The fact that we buy a Chinese wind farm, the one Chinese, from what I remember, the cost of the windmill itself, the motor, everything else, is $2.5 million to $3.5 million. Now look at the fact we have thousands of these in Texas. So this allows you to physically do the math yourself. What's 1 million times 1,000? Anybody guess? So multiply that times 3.5. Okay. So then we get into the fact that money's got to come from somewhere. We have to purchase that. But then there's tax credits that are given. So and these are federal tax credits, not so much as state tax credits. Oil and gas in Texas physically puts money into the rainy day fund. It physically puts money into education. So for every gallon of gasoline that's pumped, the federal government makes money. For every barrel of oil that comes up out of the ground, the state makes money. The school districts make money. The local counties make money. So it's and that money is encapsulated in the end price, the purchase price of that barrel of oil, no matter what happened to it, no matter where it goes in the world, no matter who buys it. But when we get to the wind farm stuff, and wind farm and solar, now I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna hammer as much on solar because I do believe in solar energy and solar technology, just not on the mass scale with the government subsidies that are given. We don't need to have that. If you want to put if you want to put a solar system, power system on your house, then do it. But then I say get off the grid. Don't pay the electricity company. Don't take the federal grant, because all you're doing is you're looping your house into a credit debt until you pay it off. And people are putting money back into the grid and they're making money off of that. But at some point, you need to ask yourself, when is the legislation going to be written that designates your solar grid on top of your house that feeds into the critical infrastructure? When is that solar grid going to belong to the government, even though you're the one who paid for it? It literally is a new way for them to come in, and we've seen legislation that was proposed, and this is what your 2030 looks like. This is what your 2040 looks like. This is what your Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum policies look like, that nobody talks about. You know, everybody talks about the personalities, but nobody talks about what's physically going on inside of those meetings. So that being said, look at what the subsidies are, and then the fact that the wind farms, you physically have to take those windmills have to be taken down when the blades are out of balance, and they have to go back to the manufacturer. So it ties up our skylines. How many dead birds do they kill? How much of the thermal energy from the winds does that? The distortion in the winds. How much does that do? Our own national defense. This is the funniest part. Rhino Tony Gonzalez is even for not having the wind farms near the military bases, and the reason why is because it distorts the radar. Nobody likes to talk about that, but that's the true fact of the matter. That's why down at the Kingsville Naval Air Station, they can no longer do the training in all the areas they were doing it in. And then look at what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico right now. The permits are being laced and labeled so that people can start building the wind farm grids for Galveston, for Houston, for those areas there, right outside the ship channel by about 20 miles off coast. So now our shipping industry and our fishing industry, commercial fishing specifically, is going to be hurt, because we're not going to have the ability to have those. You can't go fishing and drag your hooks where there's electrical lines coming across. And that's the dumbest thing ever. And you have some people. What do? Their bottom. They try to catch the bottom. And what do? They drop their hook 1,200 feet down, or 1,600 feet down, or 2,000 feet down. And it's not just one hook. You're talking about commercial fishing in Texas that we sell out on the open market. So these are going to be hurting these guys here. And we still have Chinese and we still have Mexican that fish our waters.
Well, I think, that brings a lot of really good points of concern, I think, especially when you're seeing, we saw what happened over in Alaska and that Washington State with the fisheries that started getting shut down and stuff like that from the interference. At one point it was even rumored and kind of truly rumored to believe that Russia interfered with the Alaskan fishing abilities and stuff. So it's things that we have to take note of, like not just, that could be happening, but take note of to put some feet to it. We are now out of time, and we need to beat feet ourselves over here to the Capitol so that we can get in there with Senator Hall and the gang that is going to be there. So we're super excited about that. We will follow our social media, and we will keep you guys updated on that stuff. Hopefully we'll be able to have enough signal in there to be able to go live during the question and answer time. If not, we'll just get it recorded for you guys so we can report back later. Potatoes. Walter, you got anything else?
That's it. Just you do you, we'll do Texas. Come do Texas with us, as long as you're not doing California.
I like it. All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.